Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, but if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we're doing today, and it will be available for you to watch later at your convenience. And I'll show you at the end of today's show where you can access all of our show recordings. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch. So please do share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the topics we have on NCompass Live. For those of you not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries. So we are similar to your whatever state library. So we provide training and resources and databases and grants to all types of libraries in the state. So we will have shows on NCompass Live that could be for all types of libraries. Public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies, archives, et cetera, et cetera. Really, our only criteria is that something to do with libraries. We have Nebraska Library Commission staff that sometimes come on the show and do presentations about resources and programs and things we're doing here through the commission, but we also bring in guest speakers, and that's what we have this morning. Joining us today is Pam Doran. Good morning, Pam.
Morning.
And she is from SUNY Empire State University, and SUNY is a state university in New York. My home state, actually, I'm originally from upstate New York. And she's the digital accessibility coordinator, and she's going to tell us today all about how important digital accessibility is to everyone in our libraries. So I'm just going to hand it over to you, Pam, to go ahead and take it away.
All right, well, thank you very much for having me. Hello, Nebraska. So I am a digital accessibility coordinator at the university. So my job is to make sure that our courses, our library materials, anything that we offer to our students, the website, is accessible with assisted technologies. So today we're going to go through what exactly is digital accessibility, what is your requirements under Title II and the ADA 508 Act, and also we're going to go through some simple remediation ways you can fix your materials, whether it's a Word document or your website. I have some examples, so hopefully we can be interactive here. I will pause from time to time to see if anyone has any questions. But if you have a question, I do believe in teaching right in the moment. So please go ahead, put it in the chat, and Krista will interrupt me and we'll take your question. So if you have a question in the moment, feel free to put it in the chat and then we'll take care of that. So again, thanks for coming. So first off, what exactly is digital accessibility? We may know accessibility for physical areas like making sure doors are wide enough, that your ramps are not blocked. But the same principles apply for your websites, your handouts, your social media. So when we're designing websites, applications, and content, we want to make sure that everyone can be reached, whether they're using a screen reader, whether they're using keyboard only, however, if they have low vision, and we want to make sure that we accommodate those diverse needs. And the benefit of having digitally accessible materials is it benefits everyone. And we'll get into that. So let's start off with this word, normal. What exactly is normal? A normal website, a normal person, a normal situation. The word normal is a very loaded word. So we want to try and pull ourselves away from the way we've always done things to adjust our steps just a little bit to move from normal to inclusive. We want to try and reach as many patrons as we can in our library system. I was a public librarian for 17 years in the Mid-Hudson Library System in New York. I know the population that comes into a public library. I know the population that comes into an academic library. And if we just rephrase things from the way we normally do things, we can reach our learners and our patrons. So there's an ableist language that we need to unlearn to make everyone feel comfortable in our libraries. So here's a few examples. Casually saying that's crazy or that's insane. Calling disabled people special. Focusing only on their limitations. So here we see an image of a man climbing a mountain and he's got a prosthetic leg. Is it more important that he has the prosthetic leg, or is it more important that he climbed this mountain that few people have done? Speaking of disability as a tragedy, oh, I can't believe how you can do this. You know, oh, it's amazing. Oh, she's so pretty. It's a shame she's in a wheelchair. You know, that, change that. It says calling non-disabled people normal. You've got the normal people and disabled people. We're all people. Saying disabled people are suffering from, or everyone has a little bit of ADHD or a little bit autistic. Referring to disabled people as inspirations. And I'm going to let Stella in a video cover that better. And then comparing someone's disability to your own personal shortcoming. You know, oh, I can understand you're in a wheelchair. I'm short too. I have a hard time reaching things. It's really not the same. And then to go on, calling someone brave just for existing, or making disability a joke or a punchline, which I think that one's more obvious than the rest. So this is Stella, and she did a presentation at TEDx Sydney in 2014. I'm not going to play the whole video, but I recommend the entire video. I'm just going to play a portion of the beginning where she explains the concept of using the disabled as inspiration.
Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in a very small country town in Victoria. Had a very normal, low-key kind of upbringing. I went to school, I hung out with my friends, I fought with my younger sisters. It's all very normal. And when I was 15, a member of my local community approached my parents and wanted to nominate me for a Community Achievement Award. And my parents said, that's really nice, but there's kind of one glaring problem with that. She hasn't actually achieved anything. Yeah, and they were right, you know. I went to school, I got good marks, I had a very low-key after-school job in my mum's hairdressing salon, and I spent a lot of time watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Dawson's Creek. That, I know, a lot of contradictions. But they were right, you know, I wasn't doing anything that was out of the ordinary at all. I wasn't doing anything that could be considered an achievement if you took disability out of the equation. Years later, I was on my second teaching round in a Melbourne high school, and I was about 20 minutes into a year 11 legal studies class when this boy put up his hand and said, "Hey miss, when are you going to start doing your speech?" And I said, "What speech?" You know, I'd been talking to them about defamation law for a good 20 minutes. And so he said, you know, like your motivational speaking. You know, when people in wheelchairs come to school, they usually say like inspirational stuff. It's usually in the big hole. And that's when it dawned on me. This kid had only ever experienced disabled people as objects of inspiration. We are not, you know, to this kid, and it's not his fault. I mean, that's true for many of us. You know, for lots of us, disabled people are not our teachers or our doctors or our manicurists. We're not real people. We are there to inspire. And in fact, you know, I'm sitting on this stage looking like I do in this wheelchair, and you are probably kind of expecting me to inspire you. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you dramatically. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to tell you that we have been lied to about disability. Yeah, we've been sold the lie that disability is a bad thing. Capital B, capital T. It's a bad thing. And to live with disability makes you exceptional. It's not a bad thing. And it doesn't make you exceptional. And in the past few years, we've been able to propagate this lie even further via social media. You know, you may have seen images like this one. The only disability in life is a bad attitude. Or this one, your excuse is invalid, indeed. Or this one, before you quit, try. Yeah. These are just a couple of examples, but there are a lot of these images out there. You know, you might have seen the one, the little girl with no hair.
Okay, so I'm going to pause there. And like you said, she makes a very compelling presentation on TEDx. Are there any comments or thoughts before I move on to the next slide?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment that so everyone knows that the slides will be available afterwards for the archive as well. So you'll be able to jump to the link from here, or you can just obviously look up the title there yourself as well to watch the full videos. Just want to let everyone know that
And it's embedded in this slide, so the full video you'll be able to watch. But her point is very important when you're speaking. Just to make your patrons, your students feel comfortable, it's always person first unless they ask you otherwise. So Stella is a speaker, and I will talk all about her. And maybe the last thing I mentioned is that she's a wheelchair, to kind of let them know they're seen as a person and they're not just seen by their devices or their appliances that they're using. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so here I have a picture of a sidewalk with ramps, curb cuts going down. And the scope of accessibility needs is the curb cut principle. Now, these curb cuts were put in for those who are in wheelchairs so they could easily get across the road. However, it ended up being a design that improved the experience for everyone, women with and families with strollers, the guy going into the store that has a dolly to bring all the sodas in that's very, very heavy. You have crutches, temporary disability. The curb cut helps you. So the same thing applies with your digital materials. When you make your digital materials accessible, it makes it easier for everyone to look at it. So the contrast is better. So if there's a screen in your library and the sun is beaming through the window, it doesn't wash out. It makes it still crisp and easy to read. If someone has macular degeneration and they don't realize that their eyesight is starting to fail, it also helps them to be able to navigate and feel more independent. So here's the legal and ethical considerations of making things digitally accessible. We have the ADA Disabilities Act, Section 508, and there's content accessibility guidelines, which we call WCAG, or this is WCAG, but usually people say WCAG. And these are standards that have been created that we have to meet as organizations serving the public. But it's beyond legal compliance. If we do this, we're providing equal access to everyone and creating an inclusive society. But again, we have many people, pass on here, avoiding legal risks. Non-compliance with accessibility standards can lead to serious lawsuits. Staying compliant is not just about avoiding penalties, it's demonstrating your respect for all of your patrons as well. Now, I'm going to show you this quick video. It's 3 minutes. I'm sorry for the salty language that it uses, but the reason why I wanted to show it is many websites in libraries use something that's called an accessibility overlay. And you may have seen them before where it's like a circle with a man at the bottom, and this video will show it. and you buy it, you pay for it, and you've set it up and you think your website's accessible. In fact, it's not. And I don't want to show an example of what those overlays look like, because like you said, it's going to be recorded and put out there. And I don't want to point my finger at any website saying, hey, you're using an overlay, and that means you're not compliant and you're not meeting our legal requirements. So even though this has the salty word 4 words down, apologize for that, it does do a good job of explaining exactly what an overlay is. And if you see this video, you'll recognize, oh yeah, my website is using one of those. So let's show this video, and then I'll start explaining how you can replace that overlay, maybe save a little money for your website, and teach you how you can make your website accessible without one of these. So here's the video.
If you see a little accessibility man in the bottom corner of a website, that's an overlay. And they suck. They make accessibility worse, they don't protect you from lawsuits, and they don't do anything your browser can't already do. Here are 7 reasons overlays suck. Number 1, they don't fix accessibility issues. Overlays do not modify the underlying website code. This is important because their main selling point is also the main reason not to use them. You're not fixing the issue, you're masking it. Or at least trying to. You see, computers aren't yet smart enough to understand the nuances of web accessibility, so you can't automate the process entirely. You have to find and fix the problems at source. Don't try to use an ineffective band-aid. Number 2, they don't protect you from accessibility lawsuits. Companies using overlays are still getting sued. In fact, more than 250 lawsuits were filed against companies using widgets or overlays on their websites in 2020. That number is increasing year on year, so can you afford to take the risk? Don't believe the hype and the claims about protection. You have to fix the problems at source. Number 3, they can overwrite existing accessibility settings. People using assistive technologies typically customize their device settings to make browsing easier. Overlays ignore and even impede these settings, making for a much poorer experience. Number 4, most users hate them. Overlays get in the way of giving people the best experience possible. Just listen to disability rights lawyer Havan Gurma or visit overlayfactsheet.com. Links in the description. Nope.
Okay. So I'm not going to play the whole video, but it goes on, and I think the first few arguments are enough to show. And I really wanted to use this video to kind of demonstrate what an overlay looks like. And sometimes that circle appears, with the man at different areas of the website, which is also a problem. Predictability of a website is key. And we'll cover that. And they also sometimes cover things. So again, nearly 15% of our global population lives with some sort of disability, whether it's a permanent disability or it's a temporary impairment, like a broken arm, or like I like to say some of my students, because we have adult students who are an online university, some of them may be holding a baby that they just put to sleep, and they don't want to watch their lecture out loud, the video lecture. They prefer to turn on the closed captioning, so that way the child can keep sleeping, that they can read. Or it could be that the reader is someone that has a deep accent that's hard for them to understand, and the closed captioning can help as well. So when you're doing this, you're making sure that your work and your materials are available to everyone. Okay, so we're going to cover some practical steps on how to create accessible content. So, and like I said, these are things you can do to make things a little better. Now, here's a very simple thing you can do. Many times, whether it's your newsletter, your website, you'll copy and paste the whole URL. And we see here, like in this WebAIM.org, it shows the whole thing. Listen to how this sounds for someone who's blind. This is a capture of someone's screen reader, which is a popular one called JAWS.
Your logo 3.05 inches wide by 2 inches up, and assistive technology that takes text like the document you see on your screen and reads it aloud -- as you can hear this example. Learn more. Visit link https://webaim.org/techniques/screenreader/number how to learn more about how screen.
Now, can you imagine if you had one of those really, really long ones, or even a bit.ly one would sound very jarring. So if you're going to create a link in your documents or your website, make sure that you make it a meaningful text, because then it'll read out link, learn more about screen readers. And it's a more comfortable experience for the person. Also, if you use things like color, bold, or highlighting to emphasize something's important, or, Fine Amnesty Week, and you want to make sure highlight and tease it out, a screen reader does not say in bold, in red, highlight. So if it's something really important that you want a blind user to understand, you should add the word, please note, colon, important, colon. Put some sort of text in front of it. You can still use color, you can still use highlighting, because that is a very good way for those who are sighted to see it. But if you want your blind or low vision individuals, just tease out a little bit with a little text there. And that is part of a WCAG guideline. That's part of the standard. So let's go next. Now, was there a question?
No, anybody, yeah, if anybody does have any questions or comments, anything you want to know more about, or a deeper explanation of, type in the question section, or if you've used some of these things yourself, we'd love to hear about it too, I think. I'd say that I was just thinking that tip to say something like important or please note. I do that all the time, but I just think of it as just for anyone gets their attention, for people who don't have visual issues or disabilities or anything. That I was like, I always add those in, because please pay attention to this part.
Yes, and
I'm desperate for you to read
using
this
universal design. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's absolutely perfect. So it's making sure the entire audience understands it's important.
Mm-hmm.
So here with text content, this is called using semantic headers. And if someone's using a screen reader and you set up a page, and I'll show you an example of a Word document where we're going to cover this. Many people, if they're making a title or they're making a header, will increase the font size, make it bold, center it, so that way it jumps out on the page for a sighted user. However, by doing that, it's locked into that size. So if you made it 24 point and you take that document and you try and show it on a TV, or if you try and show it on a smaller screen, that font is not going to flow. It's not going to expand and move to fit its page. So if you think of text, instead of being printed on a page, but water flowing into a vessel, it does make it harder to see. Or if it does expand, it may look very pixelated, may look very blurry. So instead of using bold, instead of raising the font, use headers. So it'll be in WordPress, if you're using WordPress, if you're using Wix, if you're using Microsoft Word, you'll see this heading thing. Normal is where you put your just regular text. Heading would be the very first title, and typically a document or a page only has one heading 1. Then we have heading 2 for any subheadings, and 3, and it goes down to 4. And what this does for a screen reader is if there's a very long page, whether it's a PDF, a Word document, a policy, a screen reader can hit a hotkey and say, show me all headings. And it condenses the whole page for them to only the headings and reads them off. And then they can choose to go to that section of the page. So by doing this, you're not forcing someone to read a 100-page document, or they can skip around in a newsletter. If they're revisiting your website and say it's the events calendar or the things that are going on, if you use headers, they can listen for the headers and say, oh, I wanted to go to the book club, the poetry reading, and it was on this page. And instead of forcing them to listen to the entire page, they can hear the headers and go, poetry reading. Click it and go right down to poetry reading when they revisit the page. So not only will it make it cleaner and beautiful for your sighted patrons and learners. This will also make it a nicer experience for those using screen readers. And again, we covered the best linking practices here. And when you get the slides, you can get these links here that give you some deeper dives in here. One thing that you want to avoid is using the word click here or link as your link, because someone who's using a screen reader can hit another hotkey and say, show me all the links on the page. And they could get a whole list of click here, click here, click here, click here, or read more, read more, read more, read more, read more, read more, read more. So if you can, avoid using those. Describe exactly what's they're going to find on the next slide. Now, if you have a blog and you have like little articles, whatever, and that read more is something that's pretty typical. In order to not clutter the page for your sighted users, which could be a cognitive lift, there's something called an ARIA tag. And I'm not going to go into that one, but in this document here, it'll tell you what an ARIA tag is. So your page could all still say read more, but it'll announce for the screen readers what the link is instead of read more. So ARIA, think of like opera and ARIA, beautiful singing out. An ARIA tag does the same thing. So if you have an element and you don't want to truly, wreck your design, you add ARIA tags to it, and that will explain to a screen reader what to expect beyond the read more. But again, try and avoid, click here for more information, any links like that is not helpful for a screen reader. Okay. Now, images and graphics, alt text. So if you place an image on your website or in a document, there's usually, you get prompted for create alt text. So under here, it would say Paris, sun setting, Eiffel Tower in the distance. And those are not added automatically, or if AI does it for you, it's usually not very well done. And here at the university, we have lots of charts, huge graphs, very detailed to describe. And we've been using ChatGPT and Gen AI to write the alt text for us. And you also want to make sure if you write alt text for an image that it matches the context of the page. So if we were writing alt text for this and it was an architecture class, we might focus more on describing the Eiffel Tower. If it was a class about wine tasting, we might talk about this is Paris and popular wines, or the location of this winemaker he was born in Paris. So you want to make sure you're not just describing the image, which is usually what Gen AI does for you, but you also add context to the image. If the image is decorative, say there's like a scroll or a little fleur-de-lis, it'll still read out to a screen reader that it's an image. And if it has no alt text, the person who cannot see that image will be wondering, is this something important that I need to know? Or was it just one of these scrolly things that the people who can see like to throw on the page? So to have a screen reader ignore an image, because you don't have to pair out that stuff if it's enhancing your website for others, you mark it as decorative. So in alt text, you'll see there's a little checkbox that says mark as decorative. And when you do that, the screen reader will ignore the squiggly or ignore the fleur-de-lis. So you don't have to have it read out every time. But if it enhances, so it's always a kind of a choice on how you want to use your alt text. And I'll show you in an example shortly how you can set your alt text. Okay, multimedia. Video should have captions. Audio content should have transcripts. There's something called a descriptive transcript as well. So if you have someone like a cooking video, you want to describe, they just took the flour and put it into the bowl and started to mix it. Because if there's anything happening on the screen that adds to it and it doesn't have dialogue, you want to add some sort of description. as well. And fortunately, you're putting things on YouTube like you're going to do with this video, it does add captions into it. So that is an important accessibility need. In Microsoft PowerPoint, you can turn on auto captions, and I will demonstrate that for you once I turn this slide off. And I'll show you where you can turn that on, and it'll also translate for you. So if you have a multilingual audience, you can have it translate into a second language while you speak English. And then also make sure there's no flashing content. I think many people are aware of photosensitive seizures. So if something blinks on the screen for more than 3 times per second, you can trigger a seizure in someone. So you want to avoid anything that flashes. And Microsoft Word can also help you write transcripts. So if you have a podcast or you have something where you want to have a printed transcript, in Microsoft Word, I'll show you where the button is. I don't have time. You can upload your MP4 and it'll create the transcript for you with time limits. Okay. And there are accessibility checkers, and you'll get this slide here. There are Chrome extensions, browser extensions such as Wave, Axe, and SilkTide, and that will evaluate your website for you and give you the pain points where you need to fix, and I'll show you that one. Okay, and then build your accessibility skills. Thank you for coming today to learn some of these skills, and thank you for Nebraska Library Commission for offering the course. I really appreciate this mini webinar that we're doing together, and stay informed. You know, look for things about accessibility, find blogs. SilkTide has wonderful, very good videos that explain each of the different parts of WCAG. Again, they're the ones that use the salty language, so they're excellent. They're very clear, but they sometimes are kind of loose with their vernacular. And then there's DQ, which is a little more formal and also very good training, and that's DQ University. And that's in my slides, so you'll have that too. So those are 2 places where you can learn more about accessibility. So let's try some of these now. So the first thing I'm going to do here on my slideshow, you see here on the ribbon, and do I need to, let me just make it just a little bit bigger so it's a little easier to see. Yeah. So here on slideshow, if I go here and click use subtitles, I can check that off. And then I can set my spoken language is English and my subtitle language, I can make English as well, which I'm going to do now. But you have 130 other languages that you can use. And in the past, sometimes because it's pretty good translation, you don't have to have a complete PowerPoint. You can just open a blank slide and turn on these subtitles. So if you need it for someone who's hard of hearing, or if someone speaks a different language and you're trying to communicate, it's a quick way. You can decide where you want your subtitles to appear. So either the bottom as an overlay, the top, below, or above. I usually pick the top if it's a, you know, a conference or a session where everybody's seated at the same plane. You know, they're all at the same level. And I usually pick below if it's like audience seating, there's an angle. So for now, I'm going to say below the slide. And when I say from the beginning, here, it'll start the subtitles down here.
Perfect.
So it's not always perfect. You do have to make sure that the person speaks slowly and clearly in order to pick up everything that you're saying. Excuse me, I don't know if it's going to pick up a cough. It didn't. Okay. Or cough. So there will be some inaccuracies. So this is good in the moment when you have the live audience and you want to be inclusive. But I do recommend using, you know, fixing your captions, you know, using YouTube, editing your captions, making sure that they are good and perfect for you. So that is one of the tips to show you. In all of the Microsoft products, if you go to review, you have an option to check accessibility. It's built into Word, it's built into PowerPoint, it's built into, so I would recommend clicking those and then going through, and I deliberately made this PowerPoint a little bit inaccessible. And it'll show you here, I have missing alt text, so it'll check for me. So this is a decorative image because there was an old date in here that I wanted to reuse this slide, so I covered that up. And what I can do is then once I'm in there, here's the accessibility ribbon. I can set the alt text and I can mark this as decorative. So now it's going to be ignored. It's not going to be read out as something that's important. And I can do the same for this one. Then when I check again, now it says that my problems with alt text are gone. This is saying it's missing a slide title. So I can go through, inspect without color, check the slide titles here. It says add a slide title. So you can go through until you have this accessibility checker is clean. Any questions about that one?
No, someone saying they really appreciate that the marking is decorative there, that realize that there's things that you can do that would say, you don't need to describe this photo. It's irrelevant.
Correct.
It's there, just there for looks.
It's just there for looks.
That there's yeah, appreciate that there's ways to do that. Yeah, I agree.
And I'm going to go down here to this image here, and I'm going to copy it. Because I spoke before about how you can write really good alt text using ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever Gen AI you might be using. So I'm going to use, I copied this, and I'm going to ask, can you write alt text for this image for a wine class? Okay. Oop. We'll have to do a snip. So you can hit here and upload on this, but I'm going to just do a snip. Grab a portion of this, and I'm going to paste it in here. And you'll see it gives me It says a scenic view of the Eiffel Tower at sunrise, framed by the Palais de Chaillot architecture in Paris. The pattern plaza is foreground and leads towards the iconic landmark, evoking elegance and cultural richness of France, home to some of the world's finest wines. So you can tell that alt text kind of, I mean, we're all librarians, we love books. That kind of puts you in the mood for your class. It's like, yeah, I like this, you know? So creating alt text, more than just saying Paris Eiffel Tower, you're kind of setting the stage and creating that mood and that feeling that you're trying to evoke by including this image in your materials that you're providing. So I like it for this. Now I'm going to say, can you describe for a travel blog? So you can see the alt text will be altered so it's kind of giving you the feeling of casting long shadows, visitors are strolling, it says timeless views of the city of light, so it's creating the alt text that matches. You can also do this for items, I'm going to upload from my computer, charts, graphs. Those are hard things to write alt text for. I'm going to just go into my screenshots here, and I'm going to use this chart. Then it will see 3 bar charts, tenured and untenured faculty, and it starts describing exactly what they are, what styles they are, the information you need. And I picked this chart because I'm going to, after it finishes describing it, you can see this is excellent alt text, and you can imagine how long it would take to write the alt text for a chart like that. And then it goes on to give you key observations. And I'm going to click on this chart because I want to discuss the accessibility of this. If you look down here, it says disagree, neutral, and agree. It's using color to give you information. So for someone who's colorblind, you might be making this inaccessible for them. So a good practice is to also add texture. So you don't have to forego using colors, but you might want to put tiny dots, little stripes, maybe chevrons in there. So that way it's more than that, or you can just label disagree, neutral, agree in there. Be careful when we talk about color of red and green, because that is the most typical color blindness. So you want to try and do that.
Yeah.
So here in the slides, I have Accessible University, and this is created by Washington University. And they offer two different websites, one that is inaccessible, and then one that is accessible after they fix it. And I'm going to show you one of the best ways to test your website. And that is keyboard only moving through. So this Accessible University, which is used for training, you can also use it to train your staff if you want to. I'm going to take my finger and I'm only going to hit the tab key on my keyboard and watch what happens to this website. Okay, it says I'm on home, I'm on before. So you can see there's kind of a, they call that a focus indicator, lets me know where I am. Info, I'm on there now, I'm going to tap again, and now I'm in about. And when I hit tab, it's forcing me to go through governance, contact us. Do you notice how the gray is kind of hard to read?
Yeah.
Right?
Gray on gray is not a good choice.
Not a good choice. You know, go through, and I keep tapping, and now what just happened? Where am I? So I've kind of lost my spot. They offer you as well, here's the after, so here's how they fixed it. So now when I tap my screen, the first thing that comes up, and you should see this on your website too, is something called skip to main content. And by now hitting my enter key, that will bring me to the body of it, so I don't have to deal with the navigation. So if I've come to the library page, I don't want to tap my way through all the navigation. I want to get right to the card catalog on the body of the page. So that bumps you down the navigation. And this is one of the lowest requirements for WCAG. So you want to try and make sure that that's there. So I'm going to hit tab again. And now look at it. If I hit about and I tab again, it moves to academics. It didn't drop me through all of them. When I hit my space key, that's what creates the drop down for me. And that makes it a cleaner experience for me as well. If I keep going, pops me through. And now you see it's staying inside. It's not jumping around. The reading order is matching the way. I'm not suddenly the page disappearing on me. So tap through your screen and test your own library to see how well you can go through your library. See how easily you can check out a book and do everything you need to do without touching a mouse. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the inaccessible website again. Here's before. And here are some of the plugins that I told you about in the slides. So this is SilkTide. And SilkTide has an accessibility checker in it that's built in. It doesn't replace a human, but it does give you the problems. Like here's that missing skip to content on the inaccessible one. Field labels, missing an H1 tag. So it doesn't have an H1 anywhere, so welcome should more than likely be an H1 tag. It's just big and bold. So you can go through, here's missing alt text, this slide, CAPTCHA, so it does that alt text. If we go to after, and we check it, and check our accessibility checker, you'll see a much better experience. So we're much closer to being accessible. It's currently set to WCAG 2.1 AA. That is the standard that matches the ADA 508 compliance. But the higher you go, the more accessible you're getting. So this is where you need to be, but this creates a better experience. So if you go a little higher,
above and beyond what the minimum is, what the minimum
Exactly.
requirement is. Nice.
and you're future proofing if you go beyond the minimum. Because then if they decide the regulations change, you're not going back and touching these things again. You're just like, yeah, it's okay. Well, look, says, oh my gosh, the ADA, now they're saying that we have to be WCAG 2.2 compliant. I'm like, no problem. We've been doing that all along. So it's kind of an interesting way to do this. Now I'm going to go back to this. So not only does it give you a couple of places to practice, because sometimes you don't want to show where the things are inaccessible on your current website. It's nice to demonstrate to your staff so you're not like embarrassing your IT person. You're not embarrassing the person who works so hard on the newsletters. You can demonstrate these tools and how it works, and then let them, privately go on in their offices or in their areas. Now here they also offer non-accessible Word and PDFs. I'm not going to cover PDFs today because remediating PDFs is a whole other session. But here I'm going to click on the Word version that's not accessible, and let's take a quick look at this. And I'll show you where to find the headers. Okay. So this is the non-accessible one. Here you can see this is bold, Calibri, and it shows it as normal. So it's just a paragraph. It's going to be read at the same level of everything here. So I want to kick this up to heading 1. Now, if I don't like the way this style looks, you're like, I don't like that heading 1. You can pick a different one or create your own style of heading 1. So you can go through and say, I want my header 1s to always be Century Gothic, 16, in this style. You can modify it. But for now, I'm just going to leave it with this version here. So that would be heading 1. Here, that would be heading 2. So you're almost creating like an outline on the page. This would also be a heading 2. Right? And also, it's important that they move over here to the left, because if someone has extreme magnification because of low vision, if you go like this and your header is centered, they may miss it. They may not see the header or the information. So any important information that you have, it's always best to have it left flush. So that way it doesn't get lost for someone who's using extreme magnification and they may not see it. And usually 200% magnification is the best in the standard. So if that's, if you're trying to check for zoom, okay. So in here, I'm going to now hit review. I'm going to check my accessibility. And we fixed those issues, so it's now accessible. So accessible university here, I would typically move this over to the left as well. But since it's decorative, it's kind of your choice on that. Okay. And I think we run till noon, right? You see 1 hour? Or
yeah, well, noon for you. Yes, top of the hour. Yeah. It's like,
okay. So I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to save that one. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can go back to here, see if there's any questions. You're more than welcome to ask any questions, if you think of something later, or if you start trying any of this on your own materials or website and you have a question, feel free to pop me an email, or it's you can put my email in the chat. It's my personal one, it's glorypam@gmail.com. Well, it's my personal professional one. So you can pop me a note if you have any questions about how to do any of these things or start getting deep in the weeds with accessibility. But doing these small tips will more than likely increase your materials and your website to a much higher level of WCAG compliance. That's it.
Yeah, so does anybody have any questions? Anything you want to know more about? Anything that you want to see demonstrated? Again, you can type into the questions section of your GoToWebinar interface.
And if you have any comments too, that you feel this is a team of people interested in accessibility, if you have anything you want to add, please do.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else? I did have, someone did ask at the beginning of the session, and I had to tell them they wanted to know where the closed captions were for our show here, which we don't. The version of GoToWebinar we're using right now does not have that, but they are upgrading. They are coming out with a new version of GoToWebinar that will have that. I can turn on captions. And I know it's coming. They keep saying, try it out. It's coming soon. And I'm still waffling on, when do I make that jump before they make it official? Is it really, ready to be live used or not yet? So I've been playing around with it. So it is something coming soon, hopefully, to the actual software that we use to run the show. So you showed where you can do closed captioning on PowerPoints and things. And we've had some people do that when they present as well. That's just built into the screen sharing, you see it all, but we will be able to do that just from our own software that we use to broadcast the show, which I'm very excited about finally.
I will give a tip with using that live PowerPoint trends. Like we have a professor named Hope Sun, and if we call her Dr. Hope Sun, the translation works very well. So it has some difficulty with transcription with proper names. So sometimes it just doesn't, or it starts coming up with, it thinks it knows what you said, and it'll put like trying to figure out the context in the rest of the sentence. So if you refer to someone by their title, Dr., Mrs., Ms., person, you can mitigate that a bit.
Yeah, and someone did say they saw when you're demoing it that it looked like it went back and changed some things after it got the context of it, so that was kind of cool to see that. Yeah, I agree too. I saw that as well.
It does the same thing too when it's translating languages. It will go back, and once you finish the sentence, it will adjust the context and make it a cleaner translation. The Spanish it uses is Spanish from Europe, so sometimes it has some idiosyncrasies there, but the Asian languages are getting stronger. I would say they're probably maybe 80% accurate as opposed to like Spanish or French, which is up around 90. But that does, it does help if you're in a public library and someone comes in and they speak a different language and they have questions, or they're just coming in because they need directions on how to get somewhere. I've had staff in the past just open up PowerPoint and turn it on.
Just use that as a live interaction with a person. Oh, nice.
Just like turn the screen, over a little bit. Hey, come here, or walk over to one of the patron access computers and just turn it on and just quickly have a conversation, to help out with comprehension.
That sounds what a great tip. Never thought of that. Yeah.
So it does help. It does help. So that's a good one. Like I said, one thing I would recommend, especially if you have the checkout process or the renewal process, that is definitely something you want to do the tab key process to see if you can get through that entire process with the tab key. And it may not be an in-house, maybe you're using Athena or some other card catalog system. A lot of times they are accessible, but if they're inside of a frame to be displayed on your website, that could be problematic. So it's good to test that to see if maybe instead of putting it inside a frame, that it opens in a new window. So that way you're not blocking or getting in the way of any of the tabs or the, keep the line focus, all the things that accessibility technology uses. So be mindful of frames. It's one of the reasons why the overlays don't work as well too, because
It's a frame, yeah, yeah.
a frame or an old, it's on the same principle as a frame. It's just a bigger one that covers your website. So test those out, and check that. Make sure anything that's in a frame, or if you're selling tickets or a fundraiser, or your calendar. Sometimes it's a Google Calendar, which is accessible, but if you put it in a frame or a widget, you may make it difficult for someone to actually see. So if you want to keep it that way, you might want to have just link to calendar in a new tab, so they can get to it, or link to card catalog in a new tab. So that way, if they're getting frustrated, you don't know about the patrons who don't come to see you because they can't get in,
Right, absolutely.
And-
we do a question from someone here. Someone says, I have a hearing impairment and use captioning often. Is there a way to control the speed of the printed text?
There is on YouTube, and let me demonstrate that for you. So I'm going to go to a YouTube video. You are still seeing my screen, correct?
Yes, yep.
Okay. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to use this one. There might be an ad. Okay. So if I go to, turn this off. If I go to the closed captioning here, showing that it's music, I can go to settings,
Okay.
go to playback speed.
Oh,
And if I reduce the playback speed, it will reduce the speed of the captioning as well for me, so that it's more comfortable. So that's the slowest speed. That's just a little bit faster.
that'll slow down the entire video, yeah.
It does slow down the entire video too, but usually it's pretty clear. You can still hear it. I'm going to turn her on. So you can do that. And you can pick the one that makes the most sense for you. This is also a reason why it's a good idea, if you have a video, to also include a transcript, either a Word doc or a text doc. So if you want to be able to revisit or slow down, you can do that. And research does show that individuals on the spectrum tend to process language 75% slower. So by offering that too, you're also helping the neurodivergent population as well,
right.
Find your materials accessible. So that is a way you can slow it down, but in a live PowerPoint or a live presentation, only the speed of the speaker controls.
Right, for a live, yeah. And that's something like you described. It's in order for that live closed captioning to really work well, speakers need to slow themselves down with how they're speaking, so that it first understands them, and then everyone's able to follow along. I know I can talk really fast sometimes, especially when I'm like doing something I really know well, and I just got to go through it. Oh yeah, this, and I'm like, oh, I hope that.
And it's
I have to like consciously slow myself down, and yeah.
It's a New York thing. I'm originally from the Bronx, so.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. Your New York is coming out. Stop.
New York's coming out. But I'm just going to show you this quick too. There's another version you can use for captioning. And let's see what's turned on here. Slideshow. It's not turned on in this one here, but oh, here it is. Present live. Do you see that?
Yeah.
What comes up is a QR code. That you can, if you're there at home when the QR code comes up, you can scan it. Oh wait, hang on a second. I have to change one thing. Present live. I have to make sure that anyone can see it, because it's kind of anyone. So if I hit present live, the QR code comes up. You can scan it with your phone. You can see how many people have joined. And then this gives you the transcripts on a handheld device. So you can scroll back and look at the running record of the transcript instead of just what's going across the screen. And you can also choose your language in this too. So it'll give you a translated version of, I'm speaking English, if you would prefer French, if you would prefer simplified Chinese, you can pick that, and then everyone looks at their device and they can have the transcripts in the language they chose.
Yeah, I just did that on my phone. I think I'm the one that is joined, and I can see it coming up on, I know you can't read it on the picture there, but you can see the words coming through on my phone there.
And you can see also, because your microphone's hot, it's also a
Yes.
mix of all of us. And if someone joined late, this is where they can go to get that if they miss the QR code, and that stays at the top of the screen. So that is a second way that you can use PowerPoint to have, you know, comfortable speed, or you can adjust your speed or still follow, or scroll back if you miss something.
Right.
Someone who has attention deficit, it's nice if their mind wanders, then they
Absolutely.
I lost my spot, and they can kind of go back in the transcript as well.
We are a little after 11 a.m. Central Time, so I think we'll wrap up in a few minutes here. But I do have one question that came in that is a good one. So you're showing all these things in, you know, PowerPoint, Microsoft. Do you know? Because I know I've had some people have used other slide software like Google Slides or Canva.
Right.
Do they have similar things, similar features? Probably. I don't know.
Not yet, but I know Google is kind of embarrassed and they want to have it. So, you know, they keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. However, what I've done in the past is I've downloaded the Google Slide. After you can create all in Google Slide, it's a great interface. It's a nice way, Canva. Download it as a PowerPoint.
Right.
Upload it into PowerPoint and use it that way. But you can do all the design work and all the elements. I mean, Canva makes beautiful slides as well.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that with some of like the more dynamic ones that swing like Prezi, I think it's
Yeah,
called.
like Prezi would. I don't even want to think about how that would work. It's so.
And it's not accessible.
No.
There's nothing that Prezi does that's accessible. It's just exciting. So.
I've seen people using it a lot less now, I'll tell you that. Mostly PowerPoint, Google Slides, and Canva are the three that most people are using now. Yeah.
I think Prezi's moments have disappeared.
Yeah, and someone has just said that their district just purchased and using something called Grackle for Google products.
Yes, Grackle is very good.
It's our Lincoln Public Schools here in Lincoln. Yeah.
Grackle is excellent.
Nice.
So.
There's a good suggestion. All right. So thank you, everyone. And yes, Pam, I will include your email for your email when I put up the archive as well. I'm going to pull presenter control back to my screen here. Takes a minute. There we go. And I will tell you, I just made changes to this page that I'm showing now, which is your session page, while you were talking. Because you had talked about, I always put up here, as you can see, to people to log in on the fly to our shows. We do have the pre-registration, but then I always put the link here. And I just, out of default, had the actual URL here displaying, and I went in behind the scenes and I changed it to say text that links to the actual attendee.gotowebinar.com/da-da, and then like 20 numbers or something.
Perfect.
So
Thanks.
everything else I'd always use like the wording here, and I just don't know why. For the link, I just kind of copied and left it, but everything else I always had as just, you know, phrases. Why I didn't do that for this one, I don't know, but I am now, thanks to your presentation.
Thank you. Again, thanks for having me. And,
Absolutely. Very important things here, definitely, that we want everyone to be doing, and as well as they can on their websites. And we have lots of thank yous coming through in the chat too. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Pam and Krista. Of course, yeah. All right. So yeah, thank you so much, Pam, for being with us and tell us all about how to do this. I hope some of our libraries of all sizes will start looking at these, and having those things that can check it for you, I think is great too. I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what's good and what's bad. All those accessibility checks, they're out there for you to use.
And if it finds something you can't fix, at least you know it's there. And that way, when you send it to your developer to fix it, you can check and make sure you're not just taking their word for it that they fixed it. You can actually have a tool that shows you it's fixed.
Absolutely. Double check. Awesome. All right. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to pop back to our NCompass Live main page here. And as I said, today's show is being recorded and it will be posted to our archives. Should be by the end of the day tomorrow at the latest, as long as GoToWebinar and YouTube cooperate with me. And we've got our upcoming shows listed here. Our archive show link is here. The most recent ones are at the top of the page, and today's will be there. Everyone who attended today's show and registered will get an email from me letting you know when the recording is available and when it's ready. We also push out into, we've got a mailing list here in Nebraska, but we also have social media. We have NCompass Live, we have a Facebook page for the show. So if you'd like to use Facebook, give us a like. We do reminders about here, reminder to log in today's show, meet our presenters, and then when our recordings are available. Already. We also use the Nebraska Library Commission, still has a Twitter account and an Instagram that will push some notifications out as well. We use a little hashtag NCompLive, an abbreviation of our show name, for anything that we put out. So you can also just search for that hashtag if you want to see anything that's going on with the show. While I'm here on the show archive page, you can search our archive to see if we've done a show on a particular topic you may be interested in. You can do the search the entire show archives or just the most recent 12 months if you want something just current. And that is because this is our full show archives. And I'm not going to scroll all the way down because you can see this is a huge page. But this is our full show archives going back to when NCompass Live first premiered, which was in January 2009. I think that puts us we're in our 17th year of the show. Oh my gosh. But, and we have all of our show archives here though. And we will always keep them available. This is something libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes sometimes. And as long as we have a place to host them, which right now is the Library Commission's YouTube channel, we'll just keep them all up there for, you know, historical and archival purposes. So just pay attention to the original broadcast date of any show when you watch something on here. You can see when the show was first done. Some shows will be fine to watch, they'll stand the test of time, still be good, useful information, but some things will become old and outdated. Resources may have changed drastically, links might be broken. We don't have time to go through hundreds and hundreds of these to constantly check links. People will work at different places than when they presented for us 10 years ago, so keep that in mind too. But like I said, as long as we have the place to keep them, we'll keep our archives up there. So here's our upcoming shows for the next couple of months. A note, you'll notice here, we usually once a month, Amanda Sweet, our technology innovation technology innovation librarian comes on to do presentations about something techie related, pretty sweet tech, but due to because we had bad weather last week, she had to change some other things in her schedule, and now she's not available to do the show for March. So the March Pretty Sweet Tech is canceled, but she will be here next on April 30th talking about Computers and Libraries Conference that she attended. So that'll be the next time that Pretty Sweet Tech is back. But next week, we'll be talking about family and community programming, major successes and epic fails. Jennifer Norton, who's the library director at our Lexington, Nebraska Public Library, will be talking about things they've been doing at their library. So please do register for that. Any of our other upcoming shows we have on the calendar here. I'll be filling in more of our April and May dates as I get things finalized. And I may have a replacement. I'm not sure if we're going to have a replacement show yet for March 19th. That's to be determined. We'll see. If not, we'll just skip a week. It's okay. All right. So thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. Thank you, Pam. Wonderful presentation. Good to see you. And hope we'll see you all on a future episode of NCompass Live. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.